Disclaimer! Kudou is not affiliated with Hasbro, the owner of My Little Pony, or Enterplay, the owner of the MLP CCG. What you're about to watch is a straight-up bare-bones tutorial on how to do everything in the MLP card game. This won't necessarily be a strategy video, but after watching this you should know the rules to the MLP card game in and out. For today's tutorial, you will be playing the part of Twilight Sparkle. Your deck will be a mix of purple and blue. Your practice opponent will be Applejack. She will be using orange and pink. Let's begin by setting up your play area. I apologize ahead of time. Scans aren't very easy to find right now, and this is the best one I was able to find of the playmat. I think as long as you can read what all of the play areas say, you should be okay. First, we're going to want to put our main character here in home. Being in home means you are in play, but you're not giving your power to either of the two problems that are on the board. Speaking of which, this wouldn't be much of a game if there were no way to get points, so let's get our problem set up too. Go through your problem deck and pick which one you want to be your first. Normally you want it to be something that's pretty easy for you to complete. It also has to be a problem that specifically has the keyword starting problem on it. You look through your problem deck and you find a card that fits both of these criteria. Perfect! It's alive, only needs one purple and one of another color. Twilight already gives one purple, so all we have to do is move her to this one and also get something in play that isn't purple. And because it has starting problem, we can set this as our very first problem to solve. You shuffle your other 9 problem cards and set them on your problem deck, then you put this card on top of them. You also shuffle your draw deck and put it here where it says draw deck. Lastly, you'll want to get your turn markers and put them there to the side. Unfortunately, we don't have turn sliders, so instead we're just going to use a regular counter. This will keep track of our victory points. We don't have any yet, but don't worry, we're going to get you some. Looking good, Twilight. Our opponent will get set up and then we can begin. Normally, we'd roll some dice to see who goes first, but for this example, let's just say that you are going first. Let's draw 6 cards from our deck and see what we're working with. Uh-oh! You drew some really good cards, but look at those color requirements. All of the blue cards we drew like Rainbow Shine here need us to already have some blue in play. We've only got one purple power in play, so this isn't very good right now. We did draw some purple cards, but look at this. We only have one purple power in play, and all of these need more than one. We'd be at a serious disadvantage if we tried to play this hand. Luckily, in this card game, we can put our hand back one time and get a new one. You look over your hand and you realize this is probably the best decision. You shuffle your hand back into your deck and draw 6 new cards. And what an improvement! Look, we've got a blue card here that we can play without any color requirements. We do have cards with color requirements, but look, we're fulfilling this one already. Now that you have a hand you can play with, let's continue the duel. Unfortunately, the player going first doesn't get to draw a card. Sorry, but we do still get our action points. The amount of action points you get at the beginning of your turn is determined by how many victory points the winning player has. This number can be found on your turn slider card as well as your playmat. When the winning player has 0 or 1 victory point, we get 2 action points. Since the game just started, it's safe to say that the winning player has 0, so we're going to get 2 action points. I recommend keeping track with dice, but you can also keep track with the action tokens that come in your starter deck. This is also when we untap any exhausted cards we have. Since none of our cards have been exhausted, we can move on to the next phase. This is going to be the troublemaker phase. Unfortunately, we don't have any troublemakers in play because it's the first turn, so we can skip this one too. Now we get to the big one, the main phase. The main phase is when we can do the majority of our plays. There are a lot of things we can do, so let's just go over all of them one by one. The first and most common is playing cards. As we saw before, most cards have some kind of color requirement. If you're meeting the color requirement, then you can put the card in play by paying its action point cost, which is located above the color requirement. Troublemakers don't have a color requirement or an action point cost. These are secret cards that you play face down, so your opponent doesn't know which one it is. You can put one in play by paying 1 action point and putting it face down next to a problem. In order to play one, you have to not have any troublemakers at that problem already. There are other things you can do with your action points too. For example, if you're not quite happy with the cards you have in your hand, you can pay 1 action point to draw an extra card. This can be done as many times as you need, but be careful with it. If you spend all of your points drawing new cards, then you won't have any points left to play any of the cards that you drew. Try your best to play with the cards you already have in your hand. Only use the pay one to draw one whenever you really don't have anything you can do. You can pay 2 action points to move any of your characters from home to a problem, from a problem to another problem, or from a problem to home. For example, we could pay 2 to move Twilight Sparkle from our home to one of the 2 problems on the board. Lastly, we can pay 2 action points to ready up a friend that's been frightened. Frightened characters aren't something that happen normally, but there are some effects that will frighten a character. Frightened characters are characters that stay tapped and don't untap at the beginning of your turn. Since exhausted characters can't give their power towards face-offs or solving problems, it's kind of a problem. So you can pay 2 to ready up any friend that's been frightened. Otherwise, they remain tapped until you decide to do so. For right now, we really want to solve our problem, so we're going to pay 2 to play a card from our hand. We play Cloud Chaser to our problem. Since our problem only needs 1 of purple and 1 of something else, this covers the something else. We only need to get 1 purple power over there to solve that problem. Since we're out of action points, our main phase is over. Let's take a look at our problems. We're in the solving phase, which lets us confront the problems and try to solve them. Since we don't meet the requirements to solve either problem, we have to pass on this one. And that makes it our opponent's turn. Our opponent does draw a card, but decides not to spend any of his action points. Since action points never disappear, he can use them during his next turn. Saving up action points is a really smart way to use them. That way you can pull off really big plays all at once. But now it's our turn again. Since it's not the first turn anymore, we do get to draw a card. We drew Gyro. It can't help us out right now, but we can use it later. We have no exhausted ponies to untap, so now we just get our action points. Since the winning score is still 0, we still get 2. There are no troublemakers in play, so we skip our troublemaker phase. Now it's our main phase. We decide to pay 1 action point to put Professor Nay in play. We play him to our problem since we only needed 1 more purple to solve it. You decide there's nothing really that you want to spend that 1 action point on, so you save it for next turn. Since we don't want to spend any more action points, our main phase is over. Now we're once again at our problem-solving phase, but something has changed. You are now solving your own problem. For doing so, you are rewarded with a victory point. But wait, there's more. When you're the first player solving a problem, you also get its bonus too. It's Alive has a bonus of 1, so you'll get 1 point automatically, plus 1 point for the bonus. We aren't solving the other problems, so that's it for our turn. The Applejack player draws his card. He doesn't have any tapped cards, so he doesn't need to untap anything. Now that the winning player has 2 victory points, each player will start receiving 3 action points at the beginning of their turn instead of 2. There are no troublemakers in play, so he skips his troublemaker phase. He begins his turn by playing 1 Apple Cobbler. He follows it up with 1 Igneous Rock. This could be bad. Igneous gets plus 1 power the first turn he's put in play. Aha! How sneaky. Looks like they had another Apple Cobbler to play. His final action token is going towards putting a face-down troublemaker on his own problem. It looks like saving those 2 action points last turn really gave him some tricks up his sleeve. Now that he's out of action tokens, though, it's time to go on to the problem-solving phase. He only needs 4 power of anything to solve your problem, and it looks like with Igneous's boost he's doing just that. For solving the problem, he gets 1 victory point. Since this is not the first time the problem has been solved, he does not get the bonus points. But now something interesting has happened. You and your opponent are both solving the problem at the same time. This creates one final step in the problem-solving phase. It's known as face-off. And reality TV jokes swing and a miss. First thing we gotta do is add up the power of both sides. Your power is going to be 2. Applejack's team is going to be 4. Now for one final boost of power. Both you and your opponent flip over the top card of your deck. Take a look at your powers. You both add exactly 1 to your team power. Unfortunately, it looks like Applejack had the upper hand in this contest. Because Applejack's team won the face-off, she gets to score the bonus points on the problem. Then you both move the cards flipped over for your face-off to the bottom of your decks. Finally, you and your opponent both move your characters back home. Now that the problem's been fully solved, we need to flip over and get a new one. You put your problem on the bottom of your deck and then you flip over the new top. Looks like we're going to need a bit more blue for this one. It's your turn again. You draw one card from your deck. Well, what do you know? Another professor. As we've already seen, you can have more than one of the same character on the field, so this might just come in handy. None of your ponies are exhausted, so you just get your action points. We get 3 now since the winning player has 2 victory points. We didn't play a troublemaker last turn, so we can skip our troublemaker phase. Our opponent did play a troublemaker, but we don't worry about that until our opponent's next troublemaker phase. So it's the start of your main phase and you look over your cards. You decide that your problem might be a bit too tough to go after right now, so you're going to go after your opponent's instead. You only need 4 of anything to complete it. Let's see if you can do it this turn. First, let's take a look at your field. Twilight and the Professor don't really have an effect that'll help you out right now, but look at the other card. Cloud Chaser can reduce the cost of one of our friends in our hand by 1. You decide this is awesome and you do it. So what friend do you want to play? Let's play the Professor. With the cost reduction, we can actually play him for free. And we definitely have his color requirement down. Our opponent's got some trouble waiting for us over there, so let's move Twilight over. With Twilight's effect, you can flip her over if you win a face-off. That includes beating a troublemaker. And trust me, the extra power is definitely worth it. You pay her 2 and you move her over. We can confront it with just 2 more power. You decide to play Blue Moon, who has exactly the amount of power we need. Since you're out of action points, you end your main phase. Now that we're in the problem-solving phase, you solve your opponent's problem. Remember, since you're the first one to solve it, you get not only the 1 point for beating it, but also 1 point for the bonus. Applejack's team isn't beating the problem, so there's no face-off. And with that, you end your turn. Your opponent draws a card, readies up, and gets 3 action points because we're on 4 victory points. During our opponent's troublemaker phase, they flip over their card. A purple Parasprite. At the beginning of our troublemaker phases, we're going to have to start tapping characters. We're going to want to get rid of this thing as quickly as possible. We place it so it's over the color requirements on our side of the problem card. As long as that Parasprite's there, we can't confront that problem, so this is just a small reminder. Your opponent spends their 3 action points on Applejack. Looks like they're trying to solve our problem. With no action points left, your opponent ends their main phase. They aren't solving any problems, so their turn is over. It's our turn again. We draw 1 card. This time we do have exhausted friends, so now we have to untap them. In this game it's also called readying. Last we get our action points. We're still playing on 3. At the beginning of our troublemaker phase, we need to tap one of our characters. If we exhaust somebody at the problem, then they can't help with the troublemaker or the scoring phase. We don't want to do that. Let's tap somebody at home. You look over your 2 characters. Since Cloud Chaser has a really good ability, we decide to tap the Professor. Now we can try to get rid of this thing. Just like characters, troublemakers have a power rating. In this case, the troublemaker's going to be at 4. We're at 4 too, so it should be a pretty good match. We do this just like the other face-off, but your opponent flips over for their troublemaker instead of their friends. So you both flip over the top card of your decks. Lucky you! We get a power boost of 2 while your opponent gets a power boost of 1. The power is added and the cards go to the bottom of their owner's decks. Since we won, the troublemaker is discarded, but that's not all. See this point value right here? This is our reward for defeating it. We now have 5 victory points. Lastly, we can use our main character's special ability. Because we want to face off, she can flip. What used to be this is now this. Plus 2 power, Studious, which gives us an action point when we win face-offs, and the added ability that if we flip over an event, we can put it in our hand. I'd say worth it. Oh, in the excitement, we forgot to look at the card we drew. Another Rainbow Shine? That's perfect! During your main phase, the double Rainbow Shine in your hand gives you a brilliant idea. You start your main phase by playing the first Rainbow Shine you originally had to your problem. Then, after using Cloud Chaser's ability, you play the second Rainbow Shine you just drew. Now that you have 4 blue over there, you just need to get 3 purple somehow. You're out of action points, so your main phase is over. During the problem-solving phase, you are solving your opponent's problem, so you do get 1 point. And with that, your turn is over. Your opponent draws 1 card and readies their ponies. Now that the winning player has 6 victory points, both players will receive 4 action points at the beginning of their turn. Since there are no troublemakers in play, the troublemaker phase is skipped. Your opponent plays Drill Bit. That's not good. We have to discard a random card. Gyro is the one that's randomly chosen. Your opponent has no more action points, so they end their main phase. During the problem-solving phase, they aren't solving any problems yet, so they don't get any points. That means their turn is now over. You draw your card like usual. We also need to ready up our exhausted friends. Since the winning player still has 6 victory points, we still get 4 action points at the beginning of our turn. Because there are no troublemakers in play, the troublemaker phase is skipped. Let's take a look at the card you drew. Comet Tail, huh? I'm sure we can find a use for him. First things first though, what do we need to do? Well, our problem still needs 3 purple on it to solve. Let's figure out a pretty cheap way to get 3 purple power over there. You think for a second and decide to move Twilight over there. But now our second problem arises. We only have 3 on our opponent's problem and we need 4 to solve it. Wait a second. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? You're absolutely right. I do need to do a Daybreak Illusion video. Oh, sorry, was that not what you were thinking about? My bad, I really thought we were on the same page. Oh yeah, Comet Tail, you could use him to fix the 1 power gap you have in your problem now. You decide there's no reason to waste your other 1 action point. You're now solving both problems, so you'll just save it for next turn. You end your main phase. Something very strange is happening now that wasn't happening before. You are successfully solving both problems. Ultimately, this is what you're aiming to do, and something very amazing happens afterwards. First, let's get your points. Since you're solving both problems, you get both points. Since you're the first one solving your problem, you get the bonus points, which is 3. Now we move on to the special portion, the double face-off. Get it? Double. Like, as in 2 of them. Forget it! This is special for a number of reasons. For one, it doesn't matter if your opponent's solving a problem or not. If you're solving both problems, it starts a double face-off. In a double face-off, all ponies currently at either problem participate. Let's start by adding up all of your power. You have 4 on your opponent's problem, and 7 on your own. So our total power is 11. Applejack's team only has ponies on 1 problem, and they equal 4. As with all face-offs, you and your opponent flip over the top card of your deck. Your opponent did draw a much stronger card, but in this case it's not going to make too big of a difference. Add your powers and put these cards to the bottom of their decks. When you win a normal face-off, you normally get the bonus points that are listed on the problem card, but this time you're winning a double face-off. You do still get bonus points. In fact, you get the higher between the 2 presented problems. In this case, your opponent's has a bonus point value of 1 and yours has a point value of 3. Therefore, you get the 3 because it's the higher one. Now, all ponies are going to return home. Since both problems were solved, both problems now need to be changed. Now it's the end of your turn, Twilight. Whoa, hold on a second. Our home is looking just a little too crowded. Twilight's home can only hold 4 friends and herself. It's unfortunate, but at the end of our turn we have to get rid of some of our friends. We don't want to get rid of anybody who has a lot of power, so let's get rid of some 1 powers. Comet Tail doesn't have an effect, so I think he's done for right now. The 2 professors have been with us pretty much the entire game, so I think they deserve a rest too. Now it's just Twilight and 4 of her friends. Your hand's got a limit too, you know. If your hand has more than 8 cards in it at the end of your turn, you have to discard until you only have 8. The good thing about home limits and hand limits are they only apply during your turn. So if you have too many cards in your home or your hand at the end of your opponent's turn, don't worry, you're still okay. The game continues like this until 1 player has succeeded at gaining the goal, which is 15 points. This is the end of the tutorial. I do hope you learned something. If this helped at all or you just enjoyed it, then I would really appreciate it if you gave me a like and maybe subscribe to my channel. Doing both or either is free and it really does help me out. If you have any questions or want to request more videos, then please leave it in the comments section below. In the meantime, why not look over my channel? You might find something else you like. And with that, I bid you adieu. Happy gaming!